We're not seeking anything that every other Albertan doesn't already receive.
Tonight, the Blackfoot tribe in Alberta files a human rights complaint over treatment of disabled band members.
We're doing carpentry, and next we'll be doing electrical, and there's electrical, plumbing, flooring, roofing, drywall.
A BC First Nation brings construction skills to students eager to learn.
I think I have a lot more interest in music and in fine arts and writing and poetry than I do film.
And a celebrated Mi'kmaq filmmaker has passed away. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, where federal, provincial and territorial ministers responsible for justice and public safety met with Indigenous leaders Wednesday afternoon. They were all there to discuss policing, unmarked graves, and missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Angel Moore reports.
Chief Wally Burns of the James Smith Cree Nation knows tragedy firsthand. This after the stabbing attacks last month left 10 people dead and 18 injured in his community. He traveled to the East Coast to speak with federal and provincial justice and public safety ministers, calling for more Indigenous policing.
For the past month or so, I've been on the go non-stop and making sure that our voices are heard in regards to the tragedy that happened in James Smith.
Federal Justice Minister David Lametti, moved by Burns' presentation, says his government will take action.
We are moving as a government to recognizing Indigenous policing as an essential service and putting the mechanisms in place to make that a reality. So to do more than say that it's an essential service.
Kimberly Murray was also present. She is a special interlocutor for unmarked burials and missing children associated with former residential schools. She asked the ministers who should investigate unmarked graves.
So I was just flagging it as a concern that communities have been raising. And we are looking at what international solutions there are, and many communities are looking at the international solutions as well.
APTN News asked Lametti about Murray's concerns. He responded that they're collaborating and working on solutions.
Criminal investigations in Canada are undertaken by the police of jurisdiction, and Kimberly Murray is trying to facilitate the legal or fill gaps in the legal apparatus as we move forward.
Indigenous leaders at the meeting were Cassidy Caron, president of the Métis National Council, and Nathan Obed, president of the Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami. Both were unavailable for comment, but ITK said in an email statement to APTN News they welcomed the opportunity to discuss MMIWG issues with the ministers. Lametti says his government is implementing the MMIWG report.
We need to get together and discuss our various pathways and how they interoperate, how they fit together, so that we can move those calls forward in terms of implementation.
The ministers' meetings will continue till Friday. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
The Blackfoot Confederacy in Treaty 7 says they have filed a complaint with the Canadian Human Rights Commission against Indigenous Services Canada. APTN's Chris Stewart has that story.
The Blackfoot Confederacy said during a press conference in Calgary
that their adult members who have developmental disabilities are not treated the same.
Leadership from the 4 members First Nations said that everyone else in the province who did not live on a reserve get benefits denied to those on reserve. They say there are not enough resources and funds to deliver proper treatment. Many people have to leave their homes to access services. Carly Fox has filed a complaint against Indigenous Services Canada with the Canadian Human Rights Commission to change that.
All of these families have a choice. They can either stay at home and live on the reserve with their culture, with their communities, or they can move off reserve in order to access services that are essential for the health and well-being of their loved ones.
Chief O'Ray Crowfoot of the Siksika Nation says that members on reserve should have access to the same care as people off reserve.
And we're not seeking anything that every other Albertan doesn't already receive. The thing that I've said constantly the whole 3 years I've been in is fair and equitable treatment. You know, we're Albertans just like everybody else is Albertans. Our members shouldn't have to leave the reserve to receive the same treatment you would in Calgary or any other municipality.
On behalf of our
Tracy McHugh is a council member on the Siksika Nation. Her sister has needed help for over 30 years, and Tracy says she has not received the assistance she needs.
To date, she still doesn't have access to proper funding for programs that would give her proper independence while living in her community.
McHugh says no one should have to be forced to leave their home to get needed treatment.
I think that option of do you stay home and live in your community without those programs and services, or do you leave the reserve to get those essential needs? How is that an option? How is that a good option for any parent, any guardian?
Indigenous Services Canada said in a statement to APTN that supporting the health and well-being of First Nations communities and individuals is a top priority for Indigenous Services Canada. We remain committed to working with all partners in addressing gaps and improving access to the supports and services that people need. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Calgary.
Now, APTN News asked for a copy of the human rights complaint, but we're told that the Blackfoot Confederacy will not release the complaint until a later date. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is on track to become a statutory holiday in the Yukon. The territorial government says it plans to officially make September 30th a stat in 2023. Changes will be made to the Yukon's Employment Standards Act next spring to allow for the day off. The decision to recognize the day was sparked by a public survey, which showed 66% of those who responded were in favor of the stat. The territory will be joining a handful of other jurisdictions that officially recognize the stat, including PEI and the Northwest Territories. Still to come tonight, on-the-job training for BC First Nations booming construction industry.
You get a base set of skills that will allow you to go out and find gainful employment in industry.
Welcome back. With the growing demand for people in the trades, Indigenous peoples in British Columbia are getting the skills they need to pursue careers in the construction industry. APTN's Tina House has the story.
Construction is booming in BC, and the demand for skilled workers is like never before. Here in North Vancouver, the Squamish Nation Training and Trade Centre is creating opportunities for Indigenous people to learn hands-on techniques and skills. For Joel Baker, he is taking the residential maintenance program so he can help within his community.
We're doing carpentry, and next we'll be doing electrical, and there's electrical, plumbing, flooring, roofing, drywall. There's a majority of stuff that we're learning.
Work you guys have been doing out there has been great, top-notch. Continue what you're doing.
Terry Williams is one of the lead instructors and says he's proud of the many successful students that have gone on to careers after this training.
You get a base set of skills that will allow you to go out and find gainful employment in industry. And right now, trades are booming. It is a really, really good place to go work. There's a lot of work. The wages are very good. I've run into students on the job site who have been working for a period of time, and interestingly enough, they've always said the skill set that they got here, they took out there, and it was directly related.
For Melissa Lewis, who manages the center, She says the center provides wraparound services, including essential skills, a wellness counselor, and training allowances to ensure success for all the students at the training center.
Some of the training that we have offered here is a Women in Trades program. We offer a Youth in Trades every other year. We have a carpentry level 1 and 2. We also offer a lot of introductory programs, such as the introductory into plumbing, carpentry, craft worker, and then those all ladder into our second year, and ensuring that they can continue to further their education up to a Red Seal.
Just cut that straight to there, straight to there.
Students are also paired with industry mentors while doing actual projects.
That's pretty good. The net just goes right in, okay? And then we're good, okay?
And then we just trace that.
So yeah, just trace that.
Since 2004, 750 students have gone through the training so far.
To be able to see their success once they complete the program, it's so incredible, to see them and have them featured as our success students and to hear their stories of what they've achieved.
If you really want to pursue it, it'll be worth it in the long run.
Tina House, APTN National News, North Vancouver.
Thanks, Tina. Great looking program. It's National Fire Safety Week, and for Indigenous people, a new Statistics Canada report is bad news. Our APTN News online reporter Danielle Parody has been following the story, and she's joining us now. Danielle, thanks for being with us. Can you tell us a bit about what the Stats Can report has to say?
Yes, the Statistics Canada, along with the National Indigenous Fire Safety Council, came out with a report that talked about it. And that report came out in March 2021 about how overall First Nations, overall Indigenous communities are 5 times more likely to die in a fire. That number doubles when we talk about First Nations communities, where people on reserve are 10 times more likely to die in a fire. And in the north, the Inuit are 17 times more likely.
Feels like almost every winter we see tragic headlines where a fire takes the lives of multiple people in a home. What's to blame for that?
Yeah, you're right, Dennis. It happens all too often. A coroner's report that looked at data from 2008 to 2017 gave us a little bit of insight into why there are so many deaths, specifically on First Nations reserve communities. So when we're talking about the North and we're talking about First Nations reserves, there's often living conditions that contribute to risk of fire death. Some of those might be crowded living conditions or living in a place that's in need of major repairs, say the plumbing, electrical, perhaps your HVAC system. The Statistics Canada stats that came out this year show that 16% of First Nations people are living in homes that are in needs of repair. That number is also high when we look at the North. So you're seeing neglect on First Nations homes contributing to fire deaths. You're also seeing a lack of smoke detectors, which can contribute to fire death as well.
One Ontario report found it was in part due to jurisdictional neglect. Can you tell us a bit about what that means?
Yeah, so jurisdictional neglect, when we talk about that as a term, we're talking about a dispute between the federal government and the provincial government as to who's responsible for providing services. So you see this interjurisdictional neglect or battles when we talk about wastewater treatment, when we talk about clean drinking water, and also when we talk about building codes. So building codes are they're published by the federal government, but they're adopted at the provincial level. And unless a band or council adopts a building code via a bylaw, there isn't a mechanism to enforce them on First Nations reserves. And even if they do adopt it in a bylaw, of course, you have to have the capacity to be able to enforce these bylaws, which means inspections, a permitting process, something that not all First Nations have the capacity to do.
Danielle, is there anything that can be done in the short term to address this?
The quickest and easiest thing that people can do is to have a smoke detector in their house. If you have one, it's a good time to test it, make sure the batteries are up to date. This has shown to reduce deaths by 50%. So it's a massive treatment for this kind of issue. And if you are a chief or you're on council and you're looking to have a fire safety awareness event, it's also really important, they told me at the Indigenous Fire Safety Council, to make sure that you're installing the alarms in people's homes rather than gifting. Life is busy. We all are off doing our own thing. You get one, you get a fire or a smoke alarm as a gift, and you may just put it on your kitchen table. So installation is a really important part of making sure that your house is safe.
Good tips, Danielle. We'll hope for a safe winter here. Thanks for talking to us about this.
Thank you, Dennis.
Coming up after the break, Mi'kmaq filmmaker Jeff Barnaby passes away at the age of 46.
I think I have a lot more interest in music and fine arts and writing and poetry than I do film.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And this photo comes to us from Marlene King. Marlene wanted to show us some of the sights from Bella Coola, British Columbia. This was just one of the many great photos she submitted, so thanks, Marlene. If you want to see your photo on our broadcast, you can email your photo to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 19 with showers in Halifax, 20 in Charlottetown, 12 in Kuujjuaq, partly cloudy, and 5 in Nain. Showers in 13 for Montreal, rain in 12 in Val-d'Or, 9 with rain in Sault Ste. Marie, 1 degree warmer, and showers in North Bay. A mix of rain and snow for Thunder Bay and a high of 7, 2 in Sioux Lookout. Rain and 4 for God's Lake and Norway House. 7 with snow in Winnipeg and Gimli, 8 in Dauphin, 12 in Regina, 14 in North Battleford, 12 with showers in Meadow Lake, 7 with rain in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 13 in Fort McMurray, 18 for Grand Prairie, 18 for Edmonton, 21 in Lethbridge, 18 for Vancouver, 21 in Kamloops and Victoria, 17 in Prince George, 15 for Smithers. -6 in Old Crow, +4 in Whitehorse. 8 with a chance of snow in Yellowknife, sunny and 2 for Wrigley. -4 with snow in Sachs Harbor, flurries and -1 in Paulituck. +4 and rain for Chesterfield and Whale Cove. -4 with snow in Resolute, +2 with snow in Arctic Bay. Coming up here right after the news, we'll have the latest episode of Nation to Nation. Here's a preview of what's coming up on the show.
I'm Annette Francis, and I'll be the host for tonight's Nation to Nation. Tune in after the news, and you'll hear from NDP MP Leah Gazan. She has a lot to say about the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act to end last winter's occupation of downtown Ottawa. You'll also hear from the president of the Native Women's Association of Canada. She described it as a slap to the face on not being invited to a meeting of the Justice and Public Safety Ministers. And Pamela Hart joins us to explain a new project of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. I'll see you in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Annette. And coming up tomorrow night on APTN Investigates, Kenneth Jackson and Cullen Crozier visit Fort Frances, Ontario, where women and children are being sexually exploited, often by the very people who are supposed to protect them. Here's a preview.
This is how human trafficking can start. Preying on people out of their extreme need. According to court documents, for Heather, was a promise of reuniting with her children.
He just bribed me with my kids. Because he knew I wanted my daughter home.
So you shared things with him?
Yeah.
And then
he would sleep with me. He would sleep with me when I'm drunk. He would get me drunk and sleep with me.
According to court documents obtained by APTN, Heather's alleged abuser and trafficker is this man, Charles Windigo. We managed to track down Windigo on his way into court this past summer. He is currently charged with 2 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of human trafficking. The allegations are that you used your power to sexually abuse women. What do you say to that?
No comment.
Is it safe in your community for women? What's that? Is it safe in your community for women? Do you have anything to say, sir?
No, not right now.
Not right now? I'll try on the way out then.
And you know, when Kenneth and Cullen get together, it's a must-watch. You can see the full story here tomorrow night, right after the news. One of Canada's most celebrated Indigenous filmmakers has died. Jeff Barnaby has died following a battle with cancer. He was 46 years old. Born and raised in Listigouche First Nation near the Quebec-New Brunswick border, Barnaby combined his Mi'kmaq heritage with genre filmmaking to much acclaim. In 2019's Blood Quantum, he used the zombie genre as a vicious critique of colonialism. It won 6 Canadian Screen Awards and has been seen in over 30 countries around the world. His debut feature, Rhymes for Young Ghouls, won numerous prizes and helped launch the career of Mohawk actress Deborah Jacobs. Barnaby frequently used the endangered Mi'kmaq language in his films. However, he viewed his role as an artist as not only to preserve Mi'kmaq culture, but to also push it into the future.
I think I have a lot more interest in music and fine arts and writing and poetry than I do film. And film just makes for a nice foundation for all of those things, where you can bring that sensibility, all that sensibility of writer, poet, visual artist, and musician to film, and there's not much of a translation there because all those things come into play while you're making a film.
Such sad news. If you haven't watched Blood Quantum or Rhymes, do check them out. They're both incredible. A big loss on many fronts, and you can read some of the outpouring of condolences for Jeff and much more over on our website, aptnnews.ca. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday, but do stick around. Nation to Nation's up next. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.